We have major breaking news out of the state of Virginia. HB 217 has been advanced, which bans all assault weapons, which is kind of a nonsense category, and large capacity magazines, which is magazines over 10 rounds. This is basically purely bad. There is a tiny silver lining, but it's still basically purely bad. Even if you are not in the state of Virginia, if you are a gun owner in America, you need to understand what they're doing there. Virginia has, in the last 4 months, turned from one of the more good gun states to one of the most draconian. Like that. It shows you, by the way, how quick Democratic control can flip a state from pretty free to completely not. This, by the way, is what will happen in your state if you don't continue fighting and voting for your Second Amendment rights. That's just the reality. I don't like it any more than you do, but that is just the reality. If you are new here, though, make sure to subscribe. I really, really appreciate you all. We're trying to get to that 1,500 sub mark, so if you're new, subscribe. And yeah, let's get into it. So these bills are two separate bills. Initially, actually, there was no grandfather clause. So initially, the way the bill was going to work was, if you had one of these weapons and you continue to have it after the bill was passed, you would just become a criminal and they would put you in jail for up to a year. Now they've actually removed that part of the bill, so now there is a grandfather clause. So if you have a AR-15 or an extended mag before July 1, I believe, July 1, you'll be able to keep it with no restrictions. You'll be fine to keep it, but you won't be able to buy, sell, transfer, or import either so-called assault weapons or extended capacity magazines. So what's going on here? Like, what's the whole plan here? Well, I think they're both separate, actually. If we think about an extended capacity magazine, if we think about what that actually is, it becomes ludicrous. An extended capacity magazine is just a magazine with more than 10 rounds. And if you are a gun owner, I bet you probably have a magazine that falls into that category. This is not a crazy thing, right? Like a 30-round magazine is not a crazy thing. You know that. I know that. It's not. Also, even from the anti-gun perspective, right? And this is not me trying to justify any sort of gun ban, but from the anti-gun perspective, normally the reason they want to ban, let's say, an AR-15 is because they think it helps in mass shootings, or they think it's like the most criminal of all the guns, right? That's what they think, right? Stupid, but that's what they think. An extended capacity magazine doesn't. Most gun crime actually involves not a shot being fired, right? It's like me pointing a gun at you and saying, give me your wallet, right? Actually, that gun doesn't even be loaded and it'll have the same effect, right? Same with holding up a convenience store. Same with, carjacking someone, right? All those crimes actually do not require a bullet at all. They just require a piece of metal. It could be 3D printed, right? Those crimes are entirely devoid of any sort of magazine requirement, right? The next category of crime is, shooting a guy, right? Like shooting one person. And to shoot one person, you don't really need that many bullets, right? You just need like 3 or 4 or 5, right? If you're a bad shot and you're close up. And so a lot of those gang violence scenarios, it's like 3 shots, right? It's just pop, and then someone's dead, right? So that one, it doesn't help. And then obviously the majority of gun deaths in the U.S. are suicides, right? So it's obviously tragic, but that requires a single bullet, right? Obviously, that's just the reality. So what's the point of this, right? I guess you could say the mass shooting thing, but it's not like you can't just, have multiple magazines on you. Like, come on. Like, what are we talking about? So what does this actually help? The answer is nothing. Like nothing. This has no effect. So why are they pushing it? It is just an illogical law that pretty much doesn't change anything, doesn't aid in public safety, even from the anti-gun perspective, and honestly just punishes law-abiding gun owners. So what's the point of this? Well, I think that is the point, basically. The point of this law, obviously, is to punish law-abiding gun owners. That's obviously the case if you think about this for 2 seconds, right? The reason you would introduce it, by the way, with no grandfather clause is exactly that. And luckily that had enough pushback that didn't get introduced. But before that didn't get removed, you would have a situation where I could go out, to my FFL, buy a perfectly legal pistol and perfectly legal magazine or perfectly legal weapon of any kind with a large magazine, and carry it around, whatever, put it in my house, whatever I want with it, and not check the news, and then now all of a sudden the police come and arrest me and put me in jail for a year. That's the legitimate situation you had. That is why they wanted to do this, right? It is because fundamentally they hate you and they want you to go to prison for being a lawful gun owner. Or take another situation, right? Let's say you're doing something, again, not condoning this, but illegal, but not like murdering someone, right? You would be literally, let's say you're, you had one of these firearms in your car and you did something like a DUI, you didn't hit anyone, you just got pulled over for a DUI, right? Again, very bad, never would recommend you do that. But now you have the additional complication of now having a firearms charge while committing another crime, right? So this is intended specifically, obviously specifically, to cause gun owners to be in fear, right? If at any point the government can pull the rug out of you, say something that you already had is illegal and you will go to jail even if you didn't know because they don't have to tell you or anything. I mean, obviously that puts the whole gun owner movement into disarray. Now, they did remove that gun grandfather clause, but that motivation obviously is the point, right? That still remains. The point of this is to punish gun owners. There's no doubt. There's no other reason. There's no other explanation. That's for, by the way, the pistol magazine issue. Okay, what about the assault weapons bans, right? What's the whole deal with that, right? I think that one's more understandable. So from the anti-gun perspective, right, they think scary equals dangerous equals like kind of murderous, right? And so-called assault weapons, which is kind of a nonsense category, but what the guns they fit into their assault weapons category, like an AR-15. I mean, I think they look pretty badass. They think they look kind of scary. And you know what? I kind of get that. Like, it's stupid, but from their perspective, it's a pretty scary looking thing, right? You have to understand, these anti-gunners don't know the most about firearms technology. But from their perspective, they see, a black big gun, and that's scary to them. And you know what? So I get that one, right? There is actually some public appetite among the anti-gun movement to do something about assault weapons, right? But the pistol magazines, that's purely punitive. You literally can't come up with an explanation for that one that makes any sense. But yeah, the point behind all this is fundamentally that you have to understand who you're electing, right? What happened in Virginia essentially was a bunch of Republicans stayed home, a bunch of Republican gun owners stayed home, and this is what they got, right? They got a state now that is trying to make them a criminal for literally doing nothing. They did something that was legal. They just, let's say I do an action, right? I purchase an extended magazine, and then I just leave it in my home, right? I've done nothing after the actual purchase, which was legal, and now all of a sudden I'm a criminal, right? The state fundamentally is trying to criminalize people that have not done criminal actions, right? That's fundamentally what's happening, and it is because gun owners stayed home. And so you have to understand there's a real consequence to electoral negligence, right? That's just the reality, and that's just the fact of the matter. No argument about that, right? I don't think I'm going to get pushback from you about this topic. So it really tells you is, even if you hate the candidate, at some point you have to start voting against anti-gun policies and for pro-gun policies. That's just the reality. As much as I hate it, that's just the reality, right? You can't have your perfect sauce, even if the Republican, like, I'd rather John Cornyn be in than like Elizabeth Warren, right? I hate John Cornyn, right? John Cornyn's a horrible senator, right? He's actually my senator in Texas, but he's still terrible, right? He's the most anti-gun senator on the Republican side. He's a complete rhino. But if it's him or, like, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren, or not so much Bernie actually, but if it's him, or yeah, I'll use Elizabeth Warren, or AOC, or a gun grabber, or Ilhan Omar, that's a good example. If it's him or Ilhan Omar, obviously they're not going to run against each other. But if it's him or Ilhan Omar, I'm picking him every time. And sometimes you have to make that calculus. That's just the reality. To keep your rights, sometimes you have to make that calculus, even if it's not perfect. Anyway, guys, I hope you did enjoy the video. I hope you did. If you're new here, please subscribe down below. I'm a little discombobulated today. I just woke up, saw this news, so I had to cover it. Hope you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.